The trap set will always be available for free, but we rely on donations from our listeners. Please visit our website at thetrapset.net and click donate. Subscribe to our show on iTunes, and if you enjoy what you hear, give us a review.
When we go to a down chorus, when I do a eighth note build into the double chorus, everyone's going to stand up, and that's a thing I can do. Like, I can manipulate a crowd by how the band is playing.
This is Joe Wong. Welcome to The Trap Set, where each week we explore the lives of drummers. I want to play something for you.
Betting Taylor Swift every night inside the Oculus Rift. After Mr. and the Mrs. finish dinner and the dishes. And now the future's dead.
You're hearing Total Entertainment Forever by Father John Misty, featuring my guest, Dan Bailey, on drums. Dan began drumming as a toddler, and he developed his skills in church at a young age. By the time he was in his early 20s, he was the house drummer at the most popular church on the West Coast, and was touring and recording with many of the biggest names in Christian music. After reaching a professional apex, Dan chose to leave the church. He eventually found his way into Father John Misty, a band led by former Fleet Foxes drummer Josh Tillman. Dan's comprehensive musicality and exceptional professionalism led to his position as musical director of the band. He also recently built his own studio, where when he's not on tour, he records drums for a variety of artists. I spoke to him in downtown Los Angeles. And now my conversation with Dan Bailey.
I grew up in Riverside, which is like 35 miles east of LA or whatever. Yeah, I lived there until I was like 20 or 21. You know, going to school, and moved out of my folks' place and moved down south. And I've been down there for 12 or 13 years now, something like that.
Are your parents both Irish?
No, actually neither are.
Really?
Yeah.
So Bailey is not an Irish name in that?
It is, but it's also, there's a lot of, I'm Welsh. So there's a lot of Welsh Baileys. Yeah.
That's interesting because my mom's family is the Jones family, which is a Welsh name traditionally, except they're Irish.
Right.
So crossover.
Yeah.
What did your parents do?
My dad has pretty much my whole life always been a like semi-professional bass and trumpet player. He'll, you know, especially as a trumpet player, he'll play like a musical or he plays in a big band or whatever. But started out a journeyman electrician, is now an electrical engineer. My mom is in like finances, like bookkeeping, CPA stuff. So they're both very like professional folks.
When did you discover drums?
When my dad was in this like gospel band that would like tour, I mean, had a bus and would like tour probably regionally and stuff. And so they would do rehearsals during the week, and at like 3 or 4, you know, it'd be like Tuesday night and they'd be rehearsing or something like that. And they'd take a break and I'd like hop up on the drum kit and would like hack around. And when like the drummer's name was Paul, when he'd be playing, I'd be like on a stool kind of over in the corner, just like watching him.
What kind of music were you listening to when you started kind of branching off from your parents?
I mean, I was born in 81, so that like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Soundgarden thing hit me like square between the eyes. You know, I was like 12 or something like that when all that was going on. So certainly like the first rock record I ever bought with my own money was Pumpkin's Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, which is like, coming from a very religious background, that's like, I'm sure if my folks knew at the time, like it would be that, or like Nine Inch Nails would be kind of the furthest you could go.
You're sure if your folks knew at the time?
I don't know that they were quite aware. Granted, I was like 14. I mean, at that point, you kind of have some autonomy. I have a CD player in my room and headphones, and that's, you know, I was already listening to like K-Rock or whatever, so that's what was on that was definitely like in my purview, was like that.
But is
mid-90s stuff.
Is the Smashing Pumpkins more secular than, say, Michael McDonald?
I mean, in theme, I would say thematically, yeah. I mean, like it's certainly. I mean, there were albums that like my folks, like I remember my mom telling me that like she didn't like a Matthew Ward record, which is like a Christian singer of medium acclaim, because it was too heavy. In that, like, Steve Lukather guitars were on it. So even like stylistically, it's not even so much thematically, but even like stylistically, she would have a problem with music that was otherwise completely fine.
What religion were you guys? Like
I grew
non-denominational?
up Southern Baptist, so
Southern
about
Baptist.
as conservative as you can be. California Southern Baptist, which isn't the most Southern Baptist, but certainly on the West Coast, like the most conservative you can be before you're all wearing like uniforms or something.
Were your parents raised Southern Baptist, or did they come to it?
My dad was. My mom became involved with it in her like mid-teens at some point. I think, not entirely sure if that's separate from because her and my dad met super young and got married at like 19 and stuff. So I don't know if that was independent of that relationship, but yeah, I mean they both were heavily involved super early on for sure.
And what was your relationship to religion as a kid?
I mean, the only one you kind of know is like you're just in it. You know, like I was like, don't remember a time I wasn't at church on like all day Sunday, Wednesday night, probably like a Thursday thing. Especially that. And then, you know, when you're young, that's where I had an opportunity to play. Like where else I was playing for like, we grew up at a bigger church that had like a choir and orchestra and stuff. And like somehow I ended up playing for that. I was like kind of tutored by the guy who was doing it most of the time, this guy Terry, was a really great drummer, is a really great drummer. And at some point at like 7 or 8, he would start like missing weekends sometimes, I'm sure for work or whatever. And I started playing, luckily like learned how to read in like a medium amount to be able to get through those like, you know, piano charts and stuff. But yeah, I mean, where else does a young kid have a chance to play 3-4 times a week than in church? So yeah, I mean, I grew up about as invested as you can be in it, you know.
I wonder if the first time that you had that visceral ecstasy of playing music, it was filtered through your religious...
Oh, of course. Yeah. And I would say that I always think it's funny that like when... I mean, and this led into what I did for the next, you know, until my late 20s. But when people will say something like, oh man, I just went to go see you too. It's like, oh, it was just like going to church. It's like, of course it was. It's the same human. That's our reaction to 2,500 people all being kind of connected and like in the same thing, all taking part in the same song. We give it this like higher context when it's in a religious setting, but it happens other places too. Like you go to see a film that you really connect with or something like that. It's that same, like the same feelings. They're not unique to the religious context.
When did you realize that?
So by like my early 20s, I had just kind of like been taking the phone calls I was getting, you know, like was in college, but got some opportunities to go play music in either like with Christian bands or like doing these like conferences as part of the house band, and just got too busy to kind of
Christian
go.
Conferences.
Yes. Yeah. So for either like for youth or for like young adults, whatever. And yeah, you start to like, once you're in the green room with, you know, a pastor of note, you know, like the guys you see on TVN or whatever, then you realize like, oh, these guys like turn that on. Like this is a thing, the same way that
they're
like
actors.
A method actor would do. Yeah. And when you start to realize like, oh, they're like inventing, this is a thing they're doing.
It's a persona.
And when you start to back up like these like worship leader guys and you realize like, oh, this is a thing they know how to do. Like I know like when we go to a down chorus, when I do a eighth note build into the double chorus, everyone's going to stand up. And that's a thing I can do. Like I can manipulate a crowd by how the band is playing. And I think I don't know, at some point, I've had this discussion with some friends of mine that are still in that industry, and they don't seem to share in that so much. They're like, no, I think it's like really the spirit moving. I'm like, I'm not here to say that can or can't happen or that's not a thing. That said, I know that when I play an eighth note build, the intensity grows up and everybody reacts to that because it was like plugged into it. So yeah, at some point I just kind of became almost like the way like a scientist would watch an experiment or something like that. It's like I became kind of disconnected enough from it that it wasn't really affecting me as much as I was like just maintaining the situation as like either someone's music director or band leader or whatever.
This episode of The Trap Set is brought to you in part by Colectivo Coffee, handmade coffee since 1993. Check them out online at colectivo.com.
You wouldn't necessarily say that just because a message is disseminated in a theatrical way that it rules out the validity of that message, right?
Of course not, yeah. And I mean, as I've, everybody I grew up, with that was in that world, there seems to be a divergent path you take in like your mid to late 20s, which is like you can either double down or you start to like, you get burnt out and you walk away from it. So, I mean, man, if your religious beliefs lead you to like treat people better or like make the world a better place, I'm completely for it. I just know for me, I got burnt out to the fact, I just saw too far behind the curtain. And it's just hard to take it seriously when it's like you're on an arena tour with 3 of the 7 biggest Christian bands, and like there's the same shenanigans going on that like a freaking Bon Jovi tour would have. It's the same like, oh, this guy's cheating on his wife with this person. But unlike the Bon Jovi context, no one's claiming to have like a superior morality.
Right, it's off-brand.
It's like, no, these guys are rock stars. Of course, they're like doing what they're doing. Whereas this is like, no, we don't do that stuff, but it's still happening. It's just like the like two-facedness of that. At some point, like, I just couldn't justify like cashing checks from that world.
Do you consider yourself a Christian still?
No.
Do you?
But I'm not like virulently like anti-religious. Like I certainly I appreciate growing up in that environment. And I mean, I still watch like theological. I'll fall down the YouTube rabbit hole of watching like theology seminars or like I just watched like an N.T. Wright thing on like justification by faith like last week, and it's the same way that some people follow like fantasy football. Like it doesn't really mean anything to me anymore, but it's still interesting. I think it's the same way that I'd watch a history documentary. I think that like theology is still fascinating, even though it doesn't maybe have as much of a direct correlation on my life anymore.
I would guess that some of what you experienced, aside from learning how to play drums, is still fundamental to your character.
Oh, of course. There's certain things you can't. I mean, I tend to be maybe a little more like legalistic than I should, and like I get real bummed out if like people aren't following the rules, But yeah, that just some of those things just get. Some of them are personality, but then some of them just get so ingrained. Like you kind of stay in line. Like, what are you doing? Like there's things are supposed to be a certain way. Turning that off can be really difficult, and I'm getting better about it as I get older. But still, the legalism of like, oh, what's wrong with your life? Like that's an evangelical trait that I've had to like pump the brakes on as I've gotten older, for sure.
Did it feel like it was a crisis of faith when you decided to walk out?
I think it happened over time, and I mean, I'm still close with a handful of people that still actively work in that world, and do well at it. And I think they're great people. And I don't feel any like, oh, they're in this for the money. It's like, no, that's what he always said he wanted to do, and now he's doing it. It's like, great, good for him, amazing. And I'll still have a bunch of buddies. Like if I go through a town, we'll like hang out, or we'll like I text with guys all the time, talk to them on the phone, whatever. Still have like relationships with people in that world, but at just some point I realized like, oh, I don't feel the thing that these guys are feeling. And at some point, I mean, I was like 20, like, not to be a dick or whatever, but I was like 23 or 24 and had like kind of irrational success in this world.
What do you mean irrational?
Like for a guy that young to be on, I think I just, met the right people at the right time in their careers and stuff. I was playing with 3 or 4 of the biggest artists in that world and had the like biggest house gig at the time on the West Coast, like for a church gig, and was like, there's a glass ceiling. I literally have nowhere to go and I'm 23, 24, and there's nothing. I'm not excited. Like, I'm playing on these records, but I'm like, don't really want anybody to, like, I'm not excited about it. I don't want to show anybody anything. Like, if it comes up, that's great, but I'm not like proud of I'm not getting to like musically stretch myself at all. I'm not getting, like, not doing any touring where it's like getting to play the like type of venues for like kind of appreciative crowds and like crowds that are not obligated to be there.
Do you think that the musical boundaries kind of reflected the conservative theology of that world, like whereas people were less likely to take chances?
That and
musically?
Specifically, I mean, the musical window is so narrow because everyone's listening to the same Coldplay record or the same U2 record. That's every reference for, or the Aqualung record was the big record that always got referenced in like 2005 when you were doing, recording sessions or whatever. And yeah, I think so. But also it's an industry built on, if you think about it, every church band is a cover band. So the point is that like an album could come out on a Tuesday. And I mean, I was involved in producing a record or two where like these were comments from the A&R guy to the artist. It was like, look, this album has to come out on Tuesday. People have to be playing this song on Sunday. These guys are all like work in an office and kind of play bass. So the fact that this song is 4-5-6-1, like everyone can play that. Like it's going to be in G or A or D or E. Great. It's like it's you're also limited by the fact that people have to cover your material like immediately, which is not the case in like Bruno Mars is not concerned with someone having to like cover his single, which in Christian music, Hillsong or something, those are written for like medium level players to be able to play immediately. And it's this whole other like concern that most artists or apparatus that make records don't even have to concern themselves with.
So what was your next step?
In like 2009 or 10 was like saying no to everything and hating my life financially for like 5 years. But like, and taking opportunities that I wanted to go do that maybe the finances didn't make any sense, but like, I want to go do that. I like that record. I got asked to go do that tour. We're going to be in a van and trailer playing like 300 cap rooms, but that's going to be fun. Like that's going to be musically fulfilling. And I'm supporting an artist I think is really good, or whatever. So yeah, it was just like, because, you don't always get to, it's not like every gig is available for every person and you say yes to the ones you want. The only real choice you have is saying no to things you get asked to do. And you can kind of steer your career by what you don't take.
Right.
So I just had to start, like, if it was something I didn't want to do, I just started saying no. And of course, people have only known you for what you've done, so that sucks to do it first, for sure, because you just sit around waiting for stuff to happen. But
well, that's the danger in taking things that you're not creatively aligned with.
That's exactly it, is because now everyone assumes you're in that boat or whatever,
right.
And luckily, it wasn't like, I mean, drums are like it's the only, I'm the luckiest guy in the world because it's the only job I've had since like 2001 or 2000.
Well, when you say you financially hated your life for 5 years.
I mean, it was like rough.
Did you think about doing something else?
Yeah, oh, totally. Yeah.
What were you thinking
about? Well, because I've been a college junior for like 16 years. I was like, I should go finish up my BA and like maybe
get a job.
Yeah, and you know what? I would love to. At some point in my life, I won't be playing full time. It just like it'll be time to go home, to be home, and that's probably going to mean not doing music full time. And the idea of like, I want to play music because I want to play music, not because I like have to.
Right.
Is a great like freedom. If you have a job that's like paying the bills and you get to make music like with your friends on the side, that's amazing.
So how did you meet Josh?
I met Josh through our bass player Eli, and I played in Everest, is a band based in LA, and toured a fair amount. And Eli had gotten Misty went through the band went through some lineup changes, and they'd hired Dave Vandervelde, who I knew peripherally, the guitar player, and Eli that I knew really well. And they had another drummer, and as I understand it, like they got to a rehearsal, and the second I joined right as the second record was coming out, and the second record's a lot more like musically dense, especially the drum parts there's a lot of like, it was recorded with like a kick and snare part and then a tom overdub and then a percussion overdub, and so finding a way to like amalgamate that all into a part is pretty strange and pretty difficult. And they got to rehearsal and it wasn't working out with the dude they had in mind, and so the call went out for like, hey man, what are you doing tomorrow? Do you want to come down and, play this thing or whatever? And they called me and, a handful of other guys, and ended up, I think it's like one of 2 auditions I've ever had, and it like worked out. And that was 4 years ago now or something like that. But yeah, just they had a need, like the tour was upcoming, there were dates coming, and just needed a guy that was going to work out.
How would you describe your creative role in the band?
I mean, there's a lot of, we're certainly all given a lot of freedom. Josh wants us to, he's told us a million times, like, just play music. Like, he's not really as concerned about what's on the record as much as like, does that guitar part make sense? Great. Or you come up with a great part. That's awesome. He'll certainly have notes, and some of the tunes have like parts that are compositional to the song. So of course I'm going to like play those. But I mean, now the records since then, I've like played on a bunch of the stuff and gotten to like compose parts and work on arrangements like as the record's getting made and stuff. Certainly about as much freedom as you can have as a hired gun, especially given that Josh is such a great drummer himself and musician, but he wants input, like, because that would be so easy for someone just to like tell you what to play, and that's perfectly in your obligation to do it. But he's been really cool about kind of letting us have some like real estate to come up with things and to play whatever we think is best for his thing.
And so now, do you see parallels between what your gig is now and the evangelical world? I mean, you're playing with someone, Father John Misty. It's a persona that he's putting on. Like, are there parallels? I
mean, I think only one of the band members didn't grow up in a similar place. And certainly Josh did. So
you're drawing from, the band is probably drawing from that experience. I think that's why we all kind of get along, that's the similar part of, even though, everyone has these different childhoods and everything, but like that's something we all have in common, is that we grew up doing music in church at some point, or like attending church, or, it's like a vocabulary you all share, because like, if you went to like high school youth group, like we all have the same anecdotes, because it's a universal thing. What is this, 6 years after you kind of gave up playing in the evangelical world?
Yeah, 7 or 8.
7 or 8 years. Yeah. Do you feel happy that you left?
Yeah, I certainly am doing something I want to be doing. And I mean, I've never stopped. I certainly don't do it near as much, but I've never stopped like playing on records, because like producers are all friends of mine from back then and stuff. So I'll totally record. I just can't. I don't feel comfortable. I could never take a CCM tour again. Like just not something I'm interested in doing.
And you have kids, right?
Yeah.
When did you become a father?
Our oldest is 8, so. Yeah, 2010, yeah.
So that was right around the time when you were hating your financial life.
Yes, yeah. That was
And you decided to have a kid.
Bad timing, yeah. Yeah.
How would you characterize your parenting style?
I mean, certainly my wife is the primary parent, because I leave for a month at a time.
Do you feel guilty about leaving?
Yes and no. Financially, I mean, this musician isn't the only job where you're required to leave town for a chunk of time. I could be in the military and have to leave for 20 months at a time or something. So that's not as bad as it could be. But I mean, there's a lot of like parent-teacher conferences I won't be around for and stuff. But the thing is, when I'm not on a tour, like that time is like yours. Like if I'm home for 2 weeks, that means I'm home for like 2 weeks. I'm home like when they go to school, when they come back from school. Like your time is your own because when you're off, you're not gone 9 to 5. So you just trying to be the best I can be about making the most of that time to kind of prioritize that stuff, because knowing that I'm going to leave for 27 days or something and I won't be around. And I think now the 8-year-old is like just getting old enough to where like having a somewhat kind of understanding of like the passage of time, to where he's like, I think the 3-year-old, or she's 2.5. Especially having an older kid now and having a younger kid for the second time, you start to realize that like if mom goes to the store, if she comes back in 15 minutes, that's the same as if she was gone 3 hours or 30 seconds. Like she doesn't really have a good understanding of like, not to say like having a dog, but kind of like having a dog. Where like if you leave to go get the mail and come back immediately, they're like, oh, you've been gone all day. Like, no, I've been gone 3 minutes or something. But yeah, especially as they get older, trying to like be good about, FaceTiming and like phone calls, and it's tough when you're overseas because the time change and stuff. But just trying to prioritize that stuff, which I hadn't always been as good about when our son was super young. Now that we have number 2, trying to like learn from my mistakes a little bit.
What type of spiritual grounding, if any, do you want to give to your kids?
I mean, my folks are still very religious. My sister and her husband are now like Episcopalian, so they're certainly not as on the spectrum. They're very liberal as far as mainstream denominations go, but they're still involved and stuff. I would certainly want them to be able to make that choice for themselves. Like I'm not going to, the best I can. Like right when I left, or not left, but like kind of started to feel a change in my religious beliefs. It's very common to get like very angry and like militaristic about it. And
just as it is if somebody becomes religious,
of course, you become pretty you become pretty adamant, and so it helps to like. Which I don't think that's a healthy response. I think that's a response to like some kind of trauma maybe you had or something. The healthy response is to like, I don't really care, or it doesn't really matter to me that much. But if those guys want to do that's great. Like as long as they're not infringing on other people, fantastic. So, I mean, my kids, I'm not going to talk bad on religion. I try not to on people's religious beliefs.
Well, what do you tell them if they ask like a big question, like what happens when you die?
That or like where'd the world come from? I mean, we're starting to get like, well, certain doctrines, certain families of mine have that the Earth is 8,500 years old. We know that not to be the case, but so my son will be like, what about dinosaurs? And I'm like, what about dinosaurs? That's a really great question. And you do like I'm going to explain to them the best I know how. Some people do believe that the world is 8 or 9 or 10,000 years old, and probably doesn't affect their day-to-day life too much, and that's fine, But yeah, exactly. It's like, because the best answer, what happens when you die? Like, I don't know. Like
that's what my mom told me when I was a kid.
That's the healthiest response. Like if a pastor is being real with you, even one has theological backing, he can go. The healthy response is, here's what I think, but I don't know. Here's what I think happens, and here's the religious texts that I think support that, but nobody really knows.
But I can see the appeal of being told what happens and having an answer.
Of course.
I mean, that wasn't something that was really offered to me as a kid because my parents were agnostic. Yeah. So I think I spent a lot more time pondering my mortality than the average 6-year-old kid.
For sure. Well, but I think that like growing up, because if you're a 10-year-old, you're working with the same 10-year-old skill set, and trying to wrap your mind around these ideas. And I remember thinking like, oh, you go to heaven forever, and it's like worshiping God forever. And I'm like, that sounds terrible. Like, no offense, just the idea of eternity is not something that we would devolve into madness. Like that is not something the human brain can handle. So that in its own way, anything forever becomes hell. So the concept of like, I appreciate like Judaism, which is like they believe in annihilation. You're just kind of, when you're done, you're done. Your spirit lives through like the remembrance of your family and stuff. That's actually way more beautiful to me than, no, we're gonna be around forever. Like, because that doesn't sound great. I appreciate. I would if I was still in that world, I would probably lean into the theology of annihilation. That when your run is done, you're done, and yeah.
That's a good thing to tell your kids. When you're done, you're done.
Yeah, and it's like, hey, did you remember before you're born? No, exactly. So that's fine. Like, I want to be here as long and as healthy and as I can be. But when it's over, I'm relatively good with that. Now, I say that as a 36-year-old man who's in good health, so maybe that won't be the case later. But as of right now, like, that seems like a much more pleasant thought process to me.
People of Seattle, the Trap Set Live is headed to KEXP on Thursday, April 12th at 7 p.m. Join me, Matt from Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, Ruby of the band Thunderpussy, Tendai from Shabazz Palaces, and Jason McGurr of Death Cab for Cutie as we discuss the universal thread that runs through the lives of drummers. This event is open to the public and completely free on a first-come, first-served basis. That's Thursday, April 12th at 7 p.m. at KEXP. See you there, Seattle. Are you the kind of person that plans out your life?
I mean, no. But I think having kids and like having a mortgage kind of plan. I mean, you are by default.
It creates a structure.
Oh, yeah. It's like I'm in a 30-year fixed loan on a place, so I kind of know what I'm going to be doing for 30 years. And certainly, I mean, having to deal with like, health insurance stuff, life insurance stuff, all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is like big boy country now. This is like, you're having to plan in a way you didn't have to when you were 20. So no, I don't have like, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. And then I might have some like, this would be great to do if an opportunity presents itself. I would love to do that and start like kind of looking for those opportunities, but not like there's no like bullet points or like outline and, I'm going to do this, then that.
You mentioned earlier that there might be a time that comes along when it's time not to play music full time. Mm-hmm. How central is being a drummer to your identity, and how much of it is something that you do? Like, how much of it is part of you, and how much of it is outside of you?
It's been the one constant in my life, other than like family members or something. But it's like the thing. I mean, I was playing like along with records when I was 3, so I don't remember a time when I couldn't play drums. So it's just like this thing I've always been able to do. I was never in like, I played sports all through high school, so I wasn't really in I wasn't in a band program. I wasn't in like high school band. Didn't start a band with friends like most people would. But I played in church on weekends, so that I kind of kept it alive. But it's so, for a while it was just like this kind of parlor trick I could do because it wasn't my primary focus. I was like playing basketball and whatever. And
he's got a Lakers hat on.
I'm currently wearing a Lakers hat, yeah. And so yeah, I just it's always been this thing I could do, and then now for the better part of 17 or 18 years, it's how I've like paid bills. So I mean, it's pretty foundational. Like, I don't know what I would do if I wasn't doing this. So yeah, I would say it's pretty like...
What did you study when you were in school?
I initially was going to be a music major, and then I realized in my world, the only thing you could really do with that is like teach music. Because no one cares if you have your like live performance. I mean, it's good to get the reps and everything, but no one's going to like... That was a great audition. Do you have your live drum performance? Like, no.
Right.
It's like you can either play or you can't. That's not to talk bad on going to... I think going to music school or conservatory is amazing, and you get really good, and you get a lot of reps, and you get to meet a lot of interesting people and stuff. But I was a music major for like a semester and a half and realized like that this doesn't like lead anywhere I want to go. So then I was just like history poli-sci because that was the most interesting thing to me. But then I realized like a poli-sci major is like you can teach poli-sci, you can be a lawyer. Like that's your, and I don't want to do either of those things. So, I mean, I just switched to like just a blanket kind of communications, whatever, for my, you know, the 2.5 years I was in school. And then at some point just got too busy to go, and that like those decisions were kind of made for me.
Do you think that you would want to stop playing full time because you'll get sick of it, or want to try something else, or do you think it's just an eventuality given the nature of the business?
I think it's I'm preparing myself as a nature of the business. I mean, I love playing. The travel end of it, like we've been touring like really heavy for like 3.5, 4 years, and just the like, you know, we just got back from Australia and Japan, and just the like, oh, it's another day with a 6:15 lobby call to go sit in another airport, to fly 3 hours to go play another show the same day, to do it again tomorrow and the day after that. It's just a grind that like not everybody has in them, and I feel my like. I feel that being depleted. Like there's only a finite amount of that I can take, and so at some point, whether it would be a house gig. So I mean, living the dream would be you get like a TV show gig, and then you're just like make that union cash.
But people I know that have those gigs don't.
Those
like
guys
them.
don't want them. That's the thing. It's tough. Well, it's always the grass is always greener, right? But I mean, I've gotten to do. I mean, pretty much anything I'd ever like. You know, not having planned out my life or anything, or my career or whatever, but like just I've gotten to play on like every TV show I would have ever wanted to play on. I've gotten to like play basically all the venues. I mean, like, and I completely appreciate how lucky I am to be able to, that's not always the case for everybody, to be like kind of marking off bucket list things kind of on a monthly basis.
Guess you're ready to die.
Misty. Yeah, I mean, like
for that annihilation.
I'm ready. I mean, I'd love to do it a couple more times, but yeah, I mean, it's maybe it's like a subconscious appreciation of like, man, I've gotten to do a lot of stuff that not everybody gets to do, and that's really great.
Yeah.
But yeah, at some point, like if a company I work with and know the people at and whatever, if they were like, hey, do you want to take this office position? And I could still play around town and stuff. That would be hard to turn down at some point, especially as I have kids going into like, that would be, if that ever came on the table at some point, I'd be interested in that. If somebody like, like a TV thing, or if the little bit of like writing for broadcast, if that ever became a thing, like there are a couple irons in the fire that I've been able to like put in there real gently, that like if they ever became a full-time thing, it would be great. But yeah, I just assume it's the eventuality that like you just don't play forever, you know.
Well, Dan, what are your closing thoughts?
If you go down a road you don't necessarily want to be on, even if you like get pretty sizable success in it, you won't be happy with it. Like, it's better to hold out for the thing you actually want to be doing. I think it's a pretty important lesson I've learned in life the last couple years. Yeah.
All right, let's go listen to some Dead Kennedys records. Dan Bailey, thanks for being here. The Trap Set is produced by me, Joe Wong, along with Chris Karwowski, who also edits the program. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Trap Set, and visit our website, thetrapset.net, to subscribe to our show for free. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please donate to our show. If you can't afford to donate, please tell a friend and give us a good rating on iTunes. Send your feedback and guest requests to thetrapset@gmail.com.